We have several questions from viewers on the subject of transportation. We have a viewer from Alexandria who wants to know will the legislature make rural road improvements a priority. Another viewer who's concerned about gas tax increases wants to know whether gas taxes are going to go up. This viewer is indicating that the legislature should show restraint on gas tax increases because it increases costs. My guess is if we wait here long enough, we'll get some suggestion from folks that we should increase the gas tax. Obviously, there's some controversy about these topics. Representative Bly, let's start with transportation, gas taxes, rural roads. You've got Highway 3 that runs down to Northfield. Tell us a little bit about your view on these issues.
Yeah, well, it seems to me, from what I hear, is there are still tremendous needs for roads and bridges to be repaired in the rural areas. So yes, we need to take care of them. They need to be high on our agenda. When I visited with my MnDOT representative from Region 6, which is the region that my district is in, he said, well, we'd like to do this and we'd like to do that, but we just don't have the funds. We can't make it work. So projects get put off year after year, and the cost of doing these projects also goes up. So I haven't seen another proposal that would raise the kind of revenue that's necessary over the coming years that would take care of the repair. So the gas tax is one of the things we look at because it is a designated tax. It goes to roads and bridges, nothing else. So that's something we consider, certainly. I understand the concern about adding to the cost, and certainly the lowering of the gas price makes people feel like they can stretch their dollars a little bit farther, and they like that, and that's good. But I think it also is a time when we think, well, perhaps we can raise that gas tax just a little bit. If I knew of another place to get funds to do the work that needs to be done, that we really can't put off, I think about after the bridge fell on 35, I got a call. Actually, it was the day before it fell. I got a call from one of my township supervisors saying, there's a bridge out on Highway 1 that's really in bad repair, and my neighbors drive across that every day. I worry about them. Can you tell me, is the county going to repair that bridge? And so I called the county transportation person. He said, I'm sorry, but we know it's in bad shape, but we just don't have the funds to do it. And my county did raise some funds, raise some taxes, wheelage tax and things like that provides some, but my county board members tell me that's not enough. So I don't know how we take care of those roads and bridges if we don't do something like raise the gas tax.
Senator Carlson?
And I have the answer. The Senate has, and I'm on the Transportation Committee, the Senate has put forth a bill that is intended to raise a lot of money. And that's because we've been asked by the business community in the Itasca project. They say they need more funding. Our counties are all saying we have 82 of 87 counties that have signed on to a group called the Transportation Alliance, which is asking for increased funding. And again, my Dakota County has said their top 3 priorities are transportation, transportation, transportation. And it always boils down to money. We have, and I wish I could quote all the numbers. I have some of them in my notes here, but we have roughly about a $20 billion unmet need, and we have to do something. We're recognizing that it's a big shortfall, and we have to do something. We cannot continue to so-called kick the can down the road. In 2008, we had a large transportation bill. There was a sales tax that was cut out of it, which was supposed to go to roads and to more of it to Greater Minnesota. Well, in this new bill, we have replaced that. What we're looking at now, and because fuel is really, in my view, the purest form of user fee, and it's also dedicated, so nobody can mess with it. You can't collect it and then spend it on something else. And so fuel, the highway or transportation is funded by the sales tax on motor vehicles, the fuel taxes on diesel, propane, alcohol, everything, and on the license fees. And that all goes directly to roads, with the small exception of an amount that the DNR takes because people are also buying fuel for their ATVs and boats. But all of it goes to transportation, and transportation is viewed as roads. And so that is, again, the purest form of funding roads. We're also looking at a sales tax, too. Some counties today already have a sales tax that we imposed on them in 2008. Other counties have been offered that chance to go up to a half-cent sales tax. And from what I understand, it's 11 counties now that have passed that sales tax of 1%. So they are now taxing for their road and transit needs. And to the caller's question, is it going to go to rural Minnesota? And the answer is yes. There's going to be a 50-50 split of the leased motor vehicle sales tax that's going to go to greater Minnesota. And also I don't know the exact splits of the numbers of the some of the other funds, but there's much more that's going to go to rural Minnesota, plus what we call the collar counties, that the collar counties have both, they might eventually have some rail transit. They already have a lot of bus transportation. Some of them have the bus rapid transit that still operates on roads. Like Dakota County, we have a very high development in the areas of West St. Paul, and then a very low development in the areas where David wants to put in the Dan Patch line. And so we have quite a diversity in our county, and the county board wants to be able to allot that to address those different needs in the different parts of the county, and we're going to allow them to do that.
Transportation, Senator Fischbach.
And I have a couple of statistics, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we currently, between state and federal taxes on gas tax, we pay 42 cents a gallon. Maybe 42.5, it could be, 42.5. And under the proposal that is on the table right now, it would add about 14 cents state per gallon. So 56 cents a gallon would be under this proposal. Okay, I remember that statistic because I don't think that we really should be raising the gas tax right now. People are seeing some relief. You know, Representative Bly mentions that people are seeing some relief. They're seeing a little bit more in their family budget because gas was sucking so much money out of their family budgets for a while there. I think they're seeing a little bit of relief. I don't think it affords us the opportunity to raise the gas tax at this point. Yes, there's need. And I think that the priority of the rapid transit, the green line, those kinds of things, that we should relook at that kind of thing. If roads and bridges are real concern, then that's where our money should be going, and that hasn't been in the past few years what we've been doing. So yes, we need roads and bridges, not the other things. The other thing is I think the caller asked about money going to rural Minnesota, and you did mention that there was some the leased vehicle tax, that part of it would be going. I think the caller probably because that he asked or he or she asked the question, really is looking at a little more than that. I think when they're looking, half of that gas tax, if you're going to increase the gas tax, half of that coming up, because there's a lot of need in rural Minnesota, and there is no green line that takes people from Paynesville to St. Cloud to work. So that's not what they're looking at. They don't have those kinds of things that are going on out there. So they have to be on the roads, and that's what needs to be done out there. So I think not just a little bit of money going to rural Minnesota, but I think they're talking about a more substantial amount of money going to rural Minnesota if you're going to be looking at transportation. And I only look at you because I know you're on that.
Yep.
Are you vice chair of transportation?
No.
Or you were at one point, maybe?
Yes.
Okay. And so that's why I kind
4 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I've been there a long time, so it all smears together.
Representative Schumacher.
Well, I don't have the fortunate ability to be on one of the transportation committees, so I don't have a lot when it comes to the background and some of the statistics and where things have been and kind of where things are going. But if the question is there going to be a gas tax increase? I don't know if anyone can really answer that. I do think that
Todd County wants to know that too, by the way. Will there be a gas tax increase? So I'm not sure if we could wager
Stay
on
tuned.
that. Stay tuned.
I think we're done May 18th is the last day of
Check in with us.
Constitution. Yeah, we have to
Check in with-
adjourn, check in on the 19th, because we won't know
Let you
for
know.
sure till then.
and that's really going to be, this is the issue that's going to dominate the session, and where things end up will all depend on what happens with transportation. I don't think there are going to be the votes for a gas tax increase in the House as of right now. I think there's some interest in looking at some of the other possibilities that are out there to improve the efficiencies and maybe take away some of the regulation there. Is that going to be enough? Some argue yes, some argue no. I think that when we look around the state, my district's about 2,500 miles in square miles, and that's a lot of roads I spend a lot of time on, and the time to go from Laverne to the cities is quite a long drive too, so I'm spending a lot of time on these roads. My home county actually, for the first time in its history, bonded for roads this year just to do the general maintenance. And so they found a way. They weren't happy about it, but just to do the general maintenance. And they told me they haven't done a blacktop. They haven't created a dirt road to a blacktop in over 30 years. And so it's not like they're expanding their infrastructure that way, but just keeping up with general demands is taking quite a bit because they don't have the ability to do more. And so this is an issue that's going to be taken on quite a bit. I think we shouldn't just close our ideas to a gas tax or no gas tax. I think there's a lot of opportunities out there. I've heard ideas of taking some of the surplus dollars and buying down some of the debt that we have on the road and bridge bonds so that we're able to bond for more of those as we go through to just get things going, at least at the very start. And I've heard two suggestions that in other states they're looking at working through the constitutional amendment process so that if the people of Minnesota really wanted to raise the gas tax on themselves, that they have the opportunity to vote and do that. And maybe that's what we come down to at the end when both sides are so far apart that we come up with the difference with that.
If I could just respond to Jim's comment about the Dan Patch line, which is actually not what I'm promoting right now. There's been a lot
Direct your cards and letters elsewhere, folks. It's not promoting a Dan Patch line.
What I am promoting is a passenger rail, regional intercity regional passenger rail, and I think we have to look to the future because I think we can't just continue to. The wear and tear on our roads and bridges will continue and get worse as our population grows, and our population is growing. So I think we do need to be thinking about not only trains but transit as well for Greater Minnesota as well as the inner city areas. And intercity regional rail, the project I'm talking about now, and what I'm asking for is really to move it from a Tier 2, which is 30 years down the road, to perhaps a Tier 1 plan, which might be 10 years down the road. Northfield is in a unique situation where we could go either the old Dan Patch line to get to Minneapolis, or we could go the old Rock Island line into St. Paul. I think either of those would be fine for Northfield because with intercity regional rail, you're going to want to get to both Minneapolis and St. Paul with that line, and I think you could do either one. But what I'm asking is that MnDOT do a study to see what's most feasible. There's been tremendous interest from Albert Lee north along the line, with the exception when we get into York County. But I think we have a growingly, as Joe mentioned earlier, the aging of our state. There are going to be more and more people who are not going to want to drive, and yet they will want to get around, whether it's using rail or transit kind of multimodal choices. And we have a growing younger population that is choosing not to buy cars and are looking to us to make some decisions about providing other kinds of transportation for people. So I think to be forward-looking, to be thinking about how we move people and goods around is it's important to think about these other modes of transportation.
I'd like to add one thing that I didn't explain about the gas tax. The proposal that we're bringing forth is to do what they call a sales tax on the wholesale price of gasoline. And what they would do is look at how much the wholesale, the collections would be on a 6.5% sales tax on wholesale gasoline. And then every August 1st, they would, that would be the termination for the year. And on October 1st, they would bump the amount, the equivalent cents per gallon. And that's what you were talking about. And I believe the 14 cents is actually what they're using in the fiscal note and the bill.
Yeah.
So that's where the 14 cents comes from. And what will happen is, because the wholesale price will fluctuate, so will that price on the pump once a year. And we can expect that gasoline will go up, and the intent is to collect more as the costs of road maintenance go up. Road maintenance has just gone out of sight. Bituminous is out of sight. The gravel is going up. All kinds of construction costs. Plus, Minnesota is fortunate and unfortunate that we have a lot of hills, lakes, and rivers. And that makes a lot more bridges. And bridges are very expensive per mile, and much more expensive than some other states. So we have a robust road system here, but it's also very expensive.
I was thinking of, to help get us out of the Depression, at the federal level, we had an infrastructure bank that provided funds based on in a sense, it was a kind of public bank. And I don't know if that's a realistic thing for Minnesota to look at, but it's a different way of funding projects. And essentially, you have the state of Minnesota making those kinds of bonds and loans out of future expectations of money coming in. It might be something to look at as a way of getting beyond this without having to raise taxes.